Today we're going to be tier ranking every single Undertaker WrestleMania match ever. The Undertaker has had so many great matches at WrestleMania, but he's had a few stinkers as well, and we're going to tier rank them from all the way up from legendary all the way down to absolute trash. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, you already found the right place for you. You don't need to go anywhere. Make sure to subscribe. I'm also going to be giving a $50 Amazon gift card to a lucky winner down in the comments. I am going to give instructions as to how to enter that later on in the video. All right, without any further ado, let's get this going. We're going to start off with the very first Undertaker match, the one that started the iconic streak. It is the Undertaker versus Jimmy Superfly Snuka at WrestleMania 7. Am I remembering that correctly? I believe it is WrestleMania 7. Look, it's going to take a while before Undertaker's matches really become iconic and legendary. That being said, his very first match was by no means trash, but it only got about 4 minutes. So, to be respectful to these two, we can't put this in trash because it really wasn't. With the time that they had, it was serviceable. It was good enough. And the same thing can be said between Undertaker and Jake the Snake Roberts at WrestleMania 8. Similar to Jimmy Superfly Snuka, this match only got about 6.5 minutes, but what they did was good enough to make it an interesting slugfest between these two. So I'm not going to put this in trash. Again, we're not at that echelon of legendary and epic matches yet. It's going to take a while, but the Undertaker versus Jake the Snake Roberts falls into the good enough category. Next, we have arguably, you know what? I'm not going to say arguably. I'm just going to go ahead and definitively say it. Undertaker's worst WrestleMania match ever. It ended in a DQ. My God, Giant Gonzalez can barely breathe as a human, and putting him in there with such an iconic and fantastic worker like the Undertaker is just such an insult to Taker. This match immediately goes into the trash category. No ifs, ands, or buts. That match is so tragically horrible. Dude, I wouldn't make my worst enemy watch that. Next, we've got Undertaker versus King Kong Bundy, and that match also falls under the serviceable. You know what? It's very close to being trash, but if the bar is Giant Gonzalez, I can't in good conscience put Undertaker versus King Kong Bundy in trash. I think many of you very well could, but I just can't. I can't. I'm going to put this in good enough. Not every single match needs to be iconic, legendary, and just this like mind-blowing 20-minute absolute wrestling clinic. Sometimes you're just gonna get Undertaker versus King Kong Bundy's, okay? Next, we've got the Undertaker versus Diesel. I recently rewatched this, and you know what? I think this match was great. I think this was the first Undertaker match, so I was like, that was good. They worked really, really well together. It definitely, I think it is better, but not like leagues and bounds better than the 3 matches that I have in good enough, but it's better than all 3 of those, so I'm going to put it into the great category. And next we've got, look, this is Undertaker's first WrestleMania main event. It was for the WWF Championship. No disqualification, if I recall. This was his first kind of like big epic. It was like a 17-minute match, but my God, it is hard to sit through, and it's not Taker's fault. Psycho Sid just overall wasn't a great in-ring performer, and my goodness, I don't know, it's hard to even call it a style, but just his presence mixed with the Undertaker's just did not gel very well. I'm going to put this into the trash category, although the match versus Giant Gonzalez is significantly trashier than Sid versus the Undertaker. Next, we've got, I think, our first epic match. It is Undertaker versus Kane. The match itself was actually a lot of fun, but now we're dealing into, now we need to consider other things aside from just like the in-ring mat work. But the fact that Kane versus the Undertaker are facing off really puts this match into another gear as opposed to just it being what it is in ring, because now we had Undertaker's first truly amazing storyline. So to me, this match, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you'd like to argue against it, it goes into the epic category. Go back and rewatch it. I think you'd really enjoy it. And then don't rewatch The Undertaker versus Big Boss Man, okay? For some reason, The Undertaker commits murder and hangs the Big Boss Man after the match while the Hell in a Cell cage is raising up. This is just, it's awful. Awful. This goes into the trash category. It is so bad. It is so bad. Next, we've got The Undertaker versus Triple H, the start of the trilogy. And this match is also epic. It is the worst of the 3 Triple H matches, in my opinion, but it's still fantastic at WrestleMania. What is that, 17? Yeah, WrestleMania 17. I think this was worth a rewatch. To me, this is kind of the first match where I think, we're starting to recognize that there's a streak going on. It wasn't full blown talked about and discussed, but it kind of felt like the first little glimpse of the aura of the streak was born. So it's going into the epic category for me. Next, we've got The Undertaker versus Ric Flair. The fact that these two have a WrestleMania match together is a wonderful treat. The match itself goes into the great category. It was wonderfully overbooked with the involvement of people like Arn Anderson in here. It is a really fun match. I don't think it's as good as Undertaker versus Kane or Undertaker versus Triple H, but it's I think it's better than the Diesel match. It's a lot of fun. This is worth a rewatch at WrestleMania 18. And again, just the fact that we have those two absolute goated legends in a match together at WrestleMania of all places is just a wonderful thing. So go back and rewatch The Undertaker versus Ric Flair. Hey, we're back into the trash category. So this was originally supposed to be a tag team match, The Undertaker versus Nathan Jones versus The Big Show and A-Train. But before the show, both Vince McMahon and The Undertaker realized, my God, Nathan Jones sucks in the ring. He can't do anything in there. He's way too green for this match. So they removed Nathan Jones from the match, literally an hour before the show. So then it turned into The Undertaker versus The Big Show and A-Train in a handicap match. Eventually, at some point in the match, Nathan Jones comes out and does his clumsy things. It's bad. It's bad. All right. WrestleMania 19 overall is an incredibly good WrestleMania. That was not one of the highlights of that WrestleMania. It's not worth a rewatch. Put that one in the dumpster. Don't come back to it. Next, we've got, it's the same reason why Undertaker versus Kane is in the epic. This one also goes into the epic. Undertaker versus Kane at WrestleMania 20 at Madison Square Garden, the return of the Deadman. This is an incredibly special match because it was the return of the Deadman gimmick that had been long and gone at this point for 6-7 years. We've had the American Badass with the motorcycle. And to see the Deadman entrance one more time was a thing of beauty. This is the first time that I got to truly, in the moment, right, as a kid, because I've gone back and watched every Undertaker match and seen him as the Deadman in the 90s. But this was the first time that me, as a wrestling fan at the time in 2004, I got to experience the Deadman. And it is something... It's an out-of-world experience having seen the Deadman's entrance at WrestleMania 20 for the first time. It truly is one of the epic moments in wrestling history to have the Deadman return at Madison Square Garden of all places against his brother Kane of all people. It was such a beautiful, perfect storm. The match was also okay, it was fine, but the moment made it so much better. And at the end of the day, what is WrestleMania if not for its moments? That goes into epic for me. Next, we've got what I consider to be the true, genuine, official start of the streak. Obviously, Undertaker is on a streak of victories here, but it wasn't until WrestleMania 21, the match against the legend killer Randy Orton, where the streak became a prize, where it became something that a WWE superstar wanted to win. They wanted to have that as a notch in their belts, their Boy Scout badge of beating the streak, and it was Randy Orton's legend killer gimmick that began that. Now, this was arguably Undertaker's first, oh my God, barnstorm of a amazing classic match. This match to me is legendary. No pun intended that we had the legend killer, but this match is absolutely fantastic. It is the first time that Undertaker got a truly phenomenal match at WrestleMania, and it's going to start a streak of fantastic WrestleManias here in just a second. I still remember that choke slam into the RKO. Oh my God, it was so good. It's so good. Go back and rewatch WrestleMania 21 Undertaker versus Randy Orton. But don't go back and rewatch Undertaker versus Mark Henry. You know what though? It's not trash. You know, it's Undertaker versus Mark Henry in a casket match. It does go into the good enough category. Also, you know, Mark Henry wasn't quite a bit of a role at this time. He wasn't yet at the Hall of Pain gimmick yet, but he was a scary mother effer at the time. What hurts me about this match is that this was originally supposed to be The Undertaker versus Kurt Angle for the World Heavyweight Championship, and we did get it a month before at No Way Out, and it was the best match of that year. It should have been at WrestleMania. That match that was at that time the best match of the year, imagine had that been at WrestleMania, it would have been elevated to arguably better than Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, which we'll get to in just a second. But unfortunately, we were robbed of that. Well, we weren't. We still got it, but just not at WrestleMania. It should have been at WrestleMania. Instead, we got The Undertaker versus Mark Henry in a casket match. It wasn't very good. It was fine. It did its job. Undertaker won. We moved on. All right. But then we start a streak of just, oh my God, face-meltingly good matches, okay? Absolutely face-meltingly good matches, and it starts here with Undertaker versus Batista at WrestleMania 23. I thought the streak was done here. Like, genuinely, I really thought, my God, there's no way that Undertaker is going over on the incredibly popular emerging megastar that was Batista, but he did. He won, and this was such a good match. So many great close calls that I really thought Batista was walking away with it. It was a good, clean match that really does, I will fight to the ends of the earth, deserves and belongs into the legendary category. Next, let's go to another legendary match, man. They don't stop, won't stop. WrestleMania 24, Edge versus The Undertaker was so good. It was so good. I originally didn't think that this was going to be as good as it was at the time. Because I never really, especially at that time, I never really saw Edge as the 5-star match caliber guy. He was still, to me, the extreme guy, right? Like the guy that needed to go off a ladder and spear somebody, or a guy that needed to go through a flaming table, or a guy that needed to go through 5 separate tables to make a mark on an event. He wasn't at yet that 5-star caliber match, right? And this was it. This was Edge's, in my opinion, this is Edge's best match of all time and one of Undertaker's best streak matches of all time. I also thought that it was done. There were so many amazing close calls. I still remember the giant sprint from the ref to try and get that pin. Dude, it was also a wonderfully overbooked mess with the edge heads coming out and attacking The Undertaker. It's so good. It's so good. Next, we've got, oh my God, just face melters after face melters. We've got potentially Undertaker's best WrestleMania match of all time in The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. Everyone knew this match was going to be amazing. Everyone knew that this match was going to be amazing. It should have just main evented, because everything that came after this match just felt flat. All right. And it's no one's fault aside from The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, because they absolutely tore the house down and tired everyone in that arena. This is a quintessential match of perfection. It was in-ring cinema. This is a match that you need to show everybody that's getting into wrestling. It's so perfect. Now the sequel, nowhere near as good as The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels 1. Nowhere near as good. I think we can all agree with that. It's still a legendary match. Like, it's still, like, I almost think that Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at Mania 25 needs its own tier, because it is a legendary match, and there's other legendary matches, but it's so, at the moment, leagues ahead of every other legendary match on here. But just know, it is way better. The Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker 1 is way better than Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker 2, but that sequel match is still a legendary bout at WrestleMania. The legendary match at WrestleMania 27, the only good match at WrestleMania 27 between The Undertaker and Triple H. It was Dude, like, I'm gonna start to sound a little bit like a broken record here, because it really just, it's just, to quote Sheamus, banger after banger after banger after banger in this no holds barred match. It was the only, honestly, I think it's the only good match of that WrestleMania. It's one of the worst WrestleManias that I've ever paid for, but damn it, that match is just so legendary. Next, we've got just another legendary match. They don't stop. It is The Undertaker versus Triple H 3 in a Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels as a special guest referee, titled End of an Era. And look, I will acknowledge that this match is not as good as The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25, but this is my favorite WrestleMania match of all time. It is the perfect combination of in-ring work. It is a great car crash in the Hell in a Cell. The in-ring storytelling is phenomenal. My God, Undertaker somehow kicking out of the sweet chin music into the pedigree. Dude, chills. Fucking cinema, fellas. Absolute cinema. This is my favorite WrestleMania match of all time. Although I will concede that it's not as good as the WrestleMania 25 match, but it is absolutely a legendary match. Next, we've got another legendary match. Dude, The Undertaker went on an absolute streak of insane matches at WrestleMania. This time, many people will actually argue that this may be Undertaker's greatest match at WrestleMania. Some people say that it's better than his match against Shawn Michaels from a technical standpoint. And I do think that it's better than Undertaker's Michaels 2. Look, I'm going to put it as Undertaker's second best WrestleMania match of all time. If you were to argue that it's the best WrestleMania match he's ever had, I won't fight you on it, because his match against CM Punk at WrestleMania 29 was so ludicrously good. It's not even fair that we as wrestling fans and humans got to witness such a good match. Also, one of the few matches that was good in that week WrestleMania. That match is absolutely freaking fantastic. And next, we have the end of the streak. WrestleMania 30, The Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar. Dude, this is where Undertaker started to lose a step. This is where he started to feel old. I know he got hurt and concussed early on in the match, which made it difficult for him to really be able to work as long a match as he did. It's definitely not trash. I think people would put it in trash just because of the decision. Decision aside, I'm gonna put this in good enough. It's a shame that the streak ended on such a whimpery fart. Imagine had it ended on like a 5-star classic, right? It's too bad that it ended on a weak match, but it's not trash. I'm gonna put that into the good enough category. We're back into good enough with Undertaker versus, you know what? No, I'll put this in great. It's better than the matches that are in good enough. Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt. This match mostly suffered from the fact that it was in daytime, because it was in San Francisco, West Coast, and there was no roof. So for some reason, Bray Wyatt came out with a lantern in the daytime, which doesn't make any sense. And of course, The Undertaker's iconic and legendary entrance just doesn't really have the same je ne sais quoi when it's not nighttime or when it's not pitch black. So but the match itself, it was fine. A lot of people thought it was going to be a passing of the torch between one supernatural gimmick to another. It wasn't, and rightfully so. It shouldn't have been. Bray Wyatt would have done nothing with it anyway, but it's still a great match, so it goes into great for me. Next, we've got The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon in a Hell in a Cell match. Really, this was a one-spot match. This was just the only reason I remember this is because Shane McMahon jumped off the top of the cell. That's it. Literally the only reason. I don't think I'd go down as far as to call this trash, but it's good enough. It got the job done. But it's just nothing that I'm going to be drooling over to rewatch. Next, we've got The Undertaker versus Roman Reigns. And oh my God, this was trash. Dude, it's a painful and awkward match to go back and rewatch. Just those two had no chemistry whatsoever. Undertaker is so slow and decrepit at this point. If Roman Reigns has to carry the match for you, you're in a bad spot, man. And the match had to be carried by Roman, and it was bad, right? Like it's not something I would ever write home about. It was supposed to be the passing of the torch from one big dog to the next. the streak was already done at that point, so the allure of Undertaker losing, like, it was kind of gone anyway. So it goes into the trash bin for me. You know, let's go ahead and toss the most insulting match in all of this into trash as well. WrestleMania 34, was it? Between the Undertaker and John Cena, or was it 35? See, now I can't remember. John Cena versus the Undertaker was my God, two of my favorite WWE superstars of all time finally being put into a WrestleMania match. This should have happened during the streak, by the way. It should have gone like Batista, Edge, John Cena, somewhere, you know, those three should have been back to back to back. And it was the most insulting squash match ever. It was like a 2-minute squash match of John Cena. To me, it's just insulting to both performers because they're both absolute legends and icons, and they deserved to go 30 plus minutes. And apparently Undertaker wanted to go 30 plus minutes. It was John Cena and Vince McMahon that only wanted to do the 5-minute squash match. And last actually I should say, is the Undertaker versus AJ Styles in the cinematic Boneyard match, which main evented night 1 of WrestleMania. So we do have another Undertaker main event here. This goes into epic. It was brilliant of them to do the match the way that they did, because of 1, the pandemic, and 2, Taker's limitations. I know some people hate these cinematic matches, but I don't. I like the show. I like the spectacle of them. It doesn't quite get into the legendary status for me, but certainly falls under epic. It was fun. It was just a fun. Both of those cinematic matches at WrestleMania were a lot of fun. And to me, this was, you know, this was about as good as you were going to get from The Undertaker. So from a booking standpoint, from a fun standpoint, it hits all of the right marks, so it goes into epic for me. And that's it. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, make sure to leave a comment about coffee. This is how you enter to win the $50 gift card. You have to put a comment about coffee and like the video, and 1 random person will be selected for the gift card. So go ahead, get cracking, comment about coffee, and like the video. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe on the way out, like the video, check out my socials, like my Twitch page down in the link below. Take care and be good people.